The Steelers have interviewed former Carolina Panthers offensive coordinator Thomas Brown for their open OC spot. Going to be talking about his potential fit here with the Black and Gold on today's edition of Steelers Talk. Well, I'm also going to be talking about a Steelers insider that says it's a quote-unquote no-brainer to sign Russell Wilson in free agency this year. And then also there's a top free agent cornerback that PFF has as a top destination for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we get into today's Steelers news and rumors content, it's going to be a loaded show. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button because in the coming days, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to hire their brand new offensive coordinator. And when that happens, Coop and I, we're going to be going live right here on the channel. And every time there's a big move for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're going to have breaking news action for you guys for free right here on YouTube. We just became the largest Steelers talk show on the YouTube platform. Thank you guys so much for all of your support of the channel, for helping us grow as much as we have over the past year. So if you want to join our family today, you can do so by clicking that subscribe button right now. So let's talk about Thomas Brown, former Los Angeles Rams running backs and tight ends coach, former assistant head coach for Sean McVay there with the Rams. Last year spent the year with Frank Reich and the Carolina Panthers, and listen, it didn't go all too well, but obviously he's held in high regard among people in the National Football League, and he's getting quite a few offensive coordinator interviews here, including with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like I said, former assistant head coach for Sean McVay there in L.A. Then he goes to Carolina with Frank Reich, and he's the offensive play caller. They switched play calling duties throughout the year. It was a complete mess there in Charlotte in 2023. But the thing with Thomas Brown is that he is really respected in NFL circles. Sean McVay says he's one of the greatest leaders and competitors he has ever worked with. And he was elevated to assistant head coach after just one season with the organization there in LA. So definitely having Sean McVay's endorsement and giving this guy that much praise is definitely going to draw interest from teams around the National Football League. But listen, man, let's address the elephant in the room here, and that's that his offense there with the Carolina Panthers last season just wasn't very good. 31st in points per game, dead last in both yards per game and yards per play, and then bottom half of the league, third down, red zone, and the only thing that they actually finished above league average in was giveaways with just 20, which ranked 14th in the National Football League. And when you just look at these numbers, you're going to say, oh my gosh, Thomas Brown, this guy absolutely stinks. But to be fair to my man Thomas Brown here, all right, he wasn't really working in his offense. It was Frank Reich's offense. And if you know anything about the Sean McVay tree and Frank Reich's offense, they're completely different systems. So Thomas Brown had to go in there. He had to learn a brand new scheme. And I don't think he was really well equipped to be the offensive play caller in that scheme because it was Frank Reich's scheme. It's not really what he was used to working with there in LA. Not to mention the talent there in Carolina just wasn't up to snuff. They had one of the worst offensive lines in the National Football League last year. Pretty much no wide receiver talent to speak of. And then, of course, they had a rookie quarterback to boot. So it just was a really tough situation for Thomas Brown last year in Carolina. But listen, man, I've been listening to a lot of his interviews, a lot of his press conferences over the last 24 hours. And when I hear this guy speak, he sounds a lot like Mike Tomlin. He's very process-oriented, detail-oriented. He's not somebody that really gets involved in all the hoopla and all the outside noise. He's focused on what he needs to do to get his squad ready to go and ready to play. And I can see why Sean McVay has endorsed him so full-throatedly. I can see Mike Tomlin, the head coach here in Pittsburgh, really hitting it off with Thomas Brown. Now, obviously, they're going to interview other people. Zach Robinson, Cliff Kingsbury still need to interview for the position. Thomas Brown was the first one to actually sit down with the team. But I could absolutely see him hitting it off with Mike Tomlin. I think he has the offensive structure. If he brings in that Sean McVay offense, I think that's the type of offensive structure the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for. And then I think Thomas Brown has the mentality and the energy and the leadership capabilities that Mike Tomlin is really going to cherish in his next offensive coordinator. Now, the big question for me when it comes to Thomas Brown, if he's hired, what kind of offense is he going to bring in? Is he going to bring in that similar system that he had in Carolina last year, that Frank Reich RPO-heavy offense that just wasn't really working? Or is he going to bring in a Sean McVay-style system that, of course, the Los Angeles Rams use there in the City of Angels? I would much prefer the Sean McVay system. And listen, I'd be willing to give Thomas Brown a shot if he ended up being the hire. I maybe wouldn't be my first choice, but I could definitely see this being a potential hire here. I think he's going to hit it off with Mike Tomlin, and at the end of the day, that Sean McVay offense is what we want to see here in Pittsburgh. So if that's the offensive structure he's bringing in, I could get on board with Thomas Brown as the next OC. Now let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. What grade would you give a potential Thomas Brown hiring at the offensive coordinator position? Do you love it? Give it an A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here sometime during this video. When that happens, take advantage of that time by grading this potential hire. Now let's shift to the quarterback position here, where Steelers insider Ed Bouchette said that it would be a no-brainer, quote-unquote, to go out and get former Broncos and Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson this offseason to be the next starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's start by taking a look at Russell Wilson's 2023 stat line here. And honestly, I think Russ had a much better season than I think people give him credit for. I think people think he's completely washed, but you look at the stat line here, 66.4 completion percentage, not bad at all. Over 200 yards per game, 26 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. Definitely kept those turnovers down this year, which is something that you want to see from Russell Wilson. And then you look at the advanced stats for him. Adjusted completion percentage, top 5 in the National Football League this year. Wasn't really working with great wide receivers. There's a lot of drops in Denver, especially over these last 2 years. His on-target percentage was top 10, 6th overall. His big-time throw percentage was top 10 as well. Passer rating also in the top 10. Now, the two areas that maybe he wasn't super high on, turnover-worthy play percentage was tied for 20th, not exactly ideal. And then the overall value, the points above replacement, was 21st. But keep in mind, he was benched in the final month of the season, so that definitely affected his score in terms of the points above replacement. Now, coming up here, I'm going to give you my take on Russell Wilson and whether or not I think it's a good idea for the Pittsburgh Steelers to consider bringing him in NFL free agency once he gets released by the Denver Broncos. But first, check out our friends at Fanatics right now by going to chatsports.com/TJ to get this awesome TJ Watt t-shirt that they have on sale right now on their website. TJ Watt, we all know he's one of the best defensive players to ever put on a uniform, not only for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but in the National Football League as a whole. He's the only player to lead the league in sacks 3 separate times. He should have at least 3 Defensive Player of the Year trophies, including one for the 2023 season. He was absolutely fantastic this year, and this is a very unique and I think a very cool-looking t-shirt that you could add to your collection if you love Steelers t-shirts and Steelers apparel. So you can go get it right now. Go to chatsports.com/TJ right now to get this awesome TJ Watt t-shirt in your closet today. So listen, when it comes to Russell Wilson, he's not necessarily number 1 on my list, but I would be on board with going out and getting Russell Wilson for the right price. I think if you're going to get him, it needs to be for a team-friendly deal, at least relatively team-friendly. You don't want to sign him for like a $30 million contract, right? I would be on board with anything from like $10 to $20 million maybe for Russell Wilson, but it's got to be team-friendly, and I want it to be short-term, all right? I want him to be able to earn a long-term contract because you can't deny that the numbers have gone down for Russell Wilson over these last 3 seasons. And it was better this year than it was in 2022, but you definitely don't want to lock Russell Wilson up to another 3-4 year contract with a ton of guaranteed money. But absolutely, when it comes to the quarterbacks that are gettable for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, he's one of my top options. So for me personally, okay, this isn't what I think is the list, the top 5. This is what I would want. My top 5 list of QB options for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024. Number 1 is Justin Fields. You guys know that. I think that he's got that star quality to him. I think that he's gotten better as a passer, which shows growth. I think that Chicago Bears fans, we just did a poll on our Bears channel here. 70% of Bears fans want him over Caleb Williams or any other quarterback in the draft. So I look at Justin Fields as somebody that definitely shows promise, and I think that that would be the best overall move. He's also cost less in terms of cap space than Kenny Pickett if you trade for for him. But I will have Russell Wilson number 2 on my list. He's a veteran. He's played in the playoffs before. He's been a clutch performer throughout his career, and he's the type of guy that can be paired with a great offensive structure with the new OC and a great defense with TJ Watt and Minka and Cam and Alex and all these different guys we got on our defense. Russell Wilson's the type of guy that can come here and compete right away and potentially turn us into title contenders once again. Now, outside of those top 2 options, Jacoby Brissett, I would like to have if the Steelers go out and get Eric Bieniemy, the former Commanders offensive coordinator. I think he's a great fit for that offensive structure. Kenny Pickett, I would probably rather have a little bit lower down the list. I get that he's the most likely option for the Steelers. I think this team still believes in him. But at the end of the day, based on what I've seen on film, I'm just not sure if he's ever going to get to a point where he's going to be a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. And then Gardner Minshew I'd put at number 5. Really don't want Gardner, but if I had to put a top 5 list, I'll put Gardner at number 5. And you might be wondering why I don't have Mason Rudolph on this list. And listen, I would probably put him number 3 on this list, but at the end of the day, I think if the Steelers bring back Mason Rudolph, it's going to be Kenny Pickett's backup, and that's not something I want to see for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that'd be good for Kenny Pickett's well-being. I think that the fans would be calling for Mason Rudolph right from the word go, and I think it's just time to part ways with Mason Rudolph because I don't think he's a good enough starter to win a Super Bowl, and as a backup, the fans love him too much to put him behind any other quarterback they might bring in. So what say you guys when it comes to Russell Wilson? Would you be on board with signing Russell Wilson as the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into next season? Type Y for yes or type N for no down there in the comments section for me when you get a second. And now we'll shift to another free agent here outside of the quarterback position. Sneed, one of the best man-to-man corners in the National Football League this year, has been tabbed by Pro Football Focus to the Steelers as one of the top destinations here for his free agency candidacy here. And listen, Sneed, really good cornerback, man. Outside of Jalen Johnson, I think he's right up there to be one of the best, if not the best cornerback in free agency heading into this year. He's pretty versatile. He can play in the slot. He's played safety before. He's played on the outside. Did a really good job this year. His Pro Football Focus grade is 72.3, which is good for 31st out of 129 eligible NFL cornerbacks this year. And listen, he's really good at doing all types of coverage. There in Kansas City, Steve Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, does a bunch of exotic stuff, lots of disguises, and Sneed is a big part of that, being able to shift positionings in the defense extremely quickly and still being able to go in man coverage, in zone coverage, man match coverage, do all these different things. And that's definitely something I think Mike Tomlin and the Steelers are going to really covet. Now, I think that the projected contract might be a little much here, 3 years, $17.5 million per season. And I'm not sure if Pittsburgh can afford that price, especially if you want to address offensive tackle, center, wide receiver, some of these other positions that they are probably going to want to get players in free agency this year. I'm not sure if the Steelers are going to have enough cap space to pay a really good corner like this, $17.5 million per season, and still be able to figure out the rest of the needs that they need to figure out during the free agency period. So would I love Sneed to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers? 100%. But am I willing to overpay for him and completely disregard the other needs on this roster? Honestly, I'm not. I would probably rather go out and get a guy like Kenny Moore, another versatile corner from the Indianapolis Colts, who would cost more than $10 million less per season, according to Pro Football Focus, and he was actually graded higher than Sneed this season. Now, like this video right now if you're pumped for the Steelers offseason. A bunch of great stuff coming up, man. The offensive coordinator hire, potentially getting a new quarterback, free agency, the draft, of course. It's going to be a bunch of great stuff coming up here. I'm certainly pumped for it. If you're a real one and you're going to be with us all throughout this 2024 offseason, make sure you click that thumbs up icon right now. Then the last thing to talk about today is that the Steelers have given defensive coordinator Teryl Austin a new 2-year deal here to return as the defensive coordinator. And listen, there's some Steelers fans on Twitter right now throwing a hissy fit, saying that this guy sucks, he's overrated, all these different things. But I'm actually okay with keeping Teryl Austin. Okay, back in 2022, obviously get out to a slow start with TJ Watt out of the lineup. But once TJ came back, They were one of the best defenses, if not the best defense down the stretch in 2022. That's why they almost made the playoffs that year and won all those games. And then in 2023, a bunch of injuries again, right? Cam Hayward was out for 4 weeks. Minkah Fitzpatrick was out from time to time. You lost two of your starting inside linebackers for the season. All right, Landon Roberts got hurt for a short period of time. A bunch of injuries, and despite that, you were 6th in scoring defense this year. All right, 6th in red zone defense this year and 8th in takeaways. Now, obviously, the yards per game and yards per play, you want to see those go down. But I think with the Pittsburgh Steelers, with Joey Porter Jr. getting into his second year, Keanu Benton looking like he could be a true star on the interior, and you still have guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Cam Hayward coming back for another year, Minkah Fitzpatrick, all these guys in your defense, and that's not even counting the guys that they're going to add this offseason. I think Teryl Austin has absolutely earned the right to remain as the Steelers defensive coordinator, and I think it's a good move to lock him up for the next 2 years. Now, let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Was keeping Teryl Austin on as DC a good or bad decision by the Pittsburgh Steelers? Type G if you think it was a good decision, or B if you think it was a bad decision. Of course, I will give you a shout out on the show here if you go give me a follow on Twitter at Jack_Sperry. Going to be putting up a lot more film analysis as we get ready for the NFL draft here in 2024. And you get a shout out on the show. So here are today's shout outs: Tyler, Joshua, Ron, Rob, Dominic, and Super Kenny, as well as Paul, Lucas, Sags, Chris, Bobby, and Timothy. Thank you guys so much for all of your support and giving me a follow on Twitter. If you want a shout out on a future edition of Steelers Talk, make sure to go to Twitter right now at Jack_Sperry and give me a follow. And that'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button because we got a bunch of great content right on deck here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, of course, when they hire that new offensive coordinator, we're going live. You're not going to want to miss a single story this offseason, so make sure you click that subscribe button right now.